There you go, everyone will be let in now. Good morning, everyone. I can see everyone trying to log in at the moment. So what I might do is wait a couple of minutes as everyone signs in, and then we will kick off the discussion in about 5 minutes. I know we've got quite a few people registered today. So Ronnie, you're a popular man.
All right. Excellent.
More people waiting, so let's give it a little bit longer. I think we might kick off now. We've got about 3/4 of people in, I think. So yeah, let's kick things off. So kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Mel Lim, Kia's Global Director of Partnerships and Engagement. Thank you so much for joining us for our Kia World Class New Zealand Speaker Series today with Ronnie Peters. A little bit about Kia, for those who may not be aware. Kia nurtures a vibrant and diverse community who share a strong passion for New Zealand and the success of its people and businesses. We have a community of about 500,000 Kiwi all around the world, people just like Ronnie. Our world-class New Zealand network is a vital part of this community as well. A really unique group of industry-leading Kiwi who are doing absolutely amazing things on the world stage. They are passionate advocates for Aotearoa and actively give back to our people and businesses. So we created this event series to not only highlight their incredible stories, but to inspire more Kiwi with global aspirations to push the boundaries of their own goals and expectations and take on the world. Right, so before we kick off, if you've got any questions at all for Ronnie, we want this to be more of a discussion, so feel free to send any questions through using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screens or your window, and I'll keep an eye out throughout the chat and try to incorporate them as we go. So a little bit about our speaker today. Ronnie is a Kiwi who's been living in New York for many years and is the founder and CEO of 360 Design. Ronnie was working in UX before the job title even existed. Over the years, he's used his UX design and strategy expertise across a number of world-leading and cutting-edge projects, which is what I'm really keen to kick things off with. So, Ronnie, talking about some of these amazing projects, world-leading projects you've worked on, things like Hyperloop TT, for example. Did you want to talk through some of those? I know you've got some slides for us that you were keen to show us exactly what has been done. So yeah, I'll hand over to you. You're on mute.
Yeah, yay, classic. Start off being on mute. Great. So Mel, thanks so much. And thank you everyone who's joining and listening in. It's a real pleasure. It's been quite a 2 years for everyone, and I know New Zealand's now feeling the brunt of COVID as we have in New York City 2 years ago, and so all my best to everyone there, and I hope everything is going as well as can be. It's tough, and because of that, we've not been together and been able to connect and link up, and I think it's remarkable what the internet has allowed us to actually do, and the fact that it's here and how we've been able to adapt to what COVID has thrown our way by being online and doing these kind of meetups and running businesses through that. So I'm going to talk about a number of different projects. This one is Hyperloop TT. I'm the creative director for Hyperloop. It is born from Elon Musk's 2013 white paper, and two major companies, Virgin Hyperloop One and Hyperloop TT, were spawned from that white paper. This is the world's first full-scale Hyperloop capsule. This is in Toulouse in France, where we have a 320-meter test track, soon to be expanded and added to where we're testing out the Hyperloop concept and building the system. So what you're actually looking at here in the bottom right-hand side is a cutaway of what a Hyperloop tube would look like. So imagine we connected Auckland and Wellington with a series of tubes like this, sucked most of the air out to about 0.1 of an atmosphere, put a capsule in there that's about the size of a regional jet, and ran this on a passive magnetic levitation motor system, so a linear synchronous motor, and Auckland to Wellington would be about a 45-minute ride, and it would be about as smooth as a modern elevator. So you barely notice that it's actually moving and underway, but we can get this up to over the speed of sound. So it's powered by magnets, which are powered by batteries, which are powered by the sun, or wind, or other alternative energy sources. So it's a zero carbon transportation system. We could run capsules every 20 seconds. So we could probably place about 30,000 people an hour into downtown Auckland from Wellington and vice versa. So watch out, sports fans, everyone could show up for the game. But we could also, think about a doctor who needs a live human heart for a heart transplant. Think about grandma who wants to babysit the grandkids and then can be home that evening. Think about the student who can only afford to live at home with their parents but wants to go to Auckland University, but they live in Wellington. So all of the kinds of things that shrinking space and time are actually going to bring. So this presentation is just from some of the branding work that we did around the redesign of the brand, and really about introducing a transportation system, the fifth mode or fourth mode of transportation that no one's actually ridden in yet, and how do we actually make that really believable, right? These are some screens from some of the different visual explorations as to how we came up with that particular brand identity. So logo, which is the mark that you're seeing here. It's about levitation. It's about magnetism and the magnets, where the capsule floats about 10 centimeters off the track. So we built that into the actual visual language and looked at the pump down of the vacuums. And so there's a story behind the actual brand and the brand identity. Now, are you guys seeing this okay? Is everything all right?
Yeah, it's all working.
Okay, great. All right, good. Yeah. So a very basic color system, 2-font system, and then coming up with things like icons that need to go with that, and building faith and credibility into this future transportation system. We don't want it to feel too sci-fi. We want, by the time you actually take your first Hyperloop ride, it's going to feel very familiar. It's going to feel very safe. It is the most safe form of transportation, safer than cars, safer than rail, safer than flying. And we built things like a route simulator, so you could punch in Auckland and Wellington, for example, and you can see how the carbon footprint of Hyperloop compares to other major forms of transportation, and the number of people that can be transported, et cetera, et cetera. So speed, emissions, passengers, et cetera. Also, a lot of work on the back end. So I want to talk a little bit here about, this is from the Operation Control Center, and this is the system that's actually powering and controlling the back end of the operations. And I feel that it's very important in a B2B environment to treat design with as much respect as I would a B2C environment. So it's people operating and using the system. It's all about safety. It's extremely important that we take design as seriously for that environment as we would from a consumer product. So those are things that you wouldn't actually see as a member of the public, but we're really paying as much attention to that as we do to the rest of the system. And these are just examples of how we would actually apply the brand across different applications.
You've got to have the merch.
So I realize I can't actually click on these without. I wanted to share another project. This is very different. So at 360, what I'm intensely interested in is this intersection of design and technology. And that means we get to work on a very wide variety and range of different projects. So this particular project is about 1700 years of Jewish life in German-speaking lands. And it's an exhibition that was virtual. It's now actually a physical exhibition because of the success of this. And it's a VR exhibition as well. And what we wanted to do is merge and blend a conventional style 2D website with a 3D virtual environment. And last year, every week for 52 weeks, we launched a different object into the 3D virtual space. I'm going to close out a couple of other sites here. That's slowing things down. But so, for example, here's an oil lamp, which launched early on. And you can take that object and you can manipulate it in 3D. And forgive the refresh rate. I know that sometimes this can look very choppy. It's actually extremely smooth when you have it on your device and experience it.
We could also
And
share
then,
these links as well, Ronnie, if people are
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, after.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to, yeah. And so then we built a 3D space that you can go into to experience those as well, right? So it's this merging of these two. And we're going to talk a little bit about the metaverse later. And it's nascent technology. It hasn't, we don't really know where it is actually going to end up, where it's going. It's moving fast and there are lots of big players involved. This is a really interesting way, I think, of starting to introduce 3D and 2D, where it's not mandatory that you go into the 3D environment, but you can explore the same exhibition and the same objects. There's that same oil lamp that we were looking at before in a gallery space, as well as in a much more conventional 2D style web experience. So this is just like a timeline that we've got in there. We've got various different themes that we're looking at, the objects themselves, and then a map of Central Europe, where you can then go in and start to explore from this aspect as well. So really looking at lots of different ways to slice and dice content and give people a dynamic and interesting way of experiencing content.
Fantastic.
So I'll go back to the,
I mean, we were talking a lot about this as well previously. Obviously, as you mentioned, with the onset of the pandemic and the world stuck at home, but also just people not ready to travel yet and explore and get out there. This kind of virtual reality, virtual world is starting to come more and more into existence. But I know during the pandemic, you worked with some of the big brands over there like Apple TV, Amazon, and Disney to create experiences for consumers while they were sitting at home in lockdown. Did you want to share some of those as well, that you created, and kind of talk us through what you developed and how that was received?
Yeah, more than happy to. So about 2 weeks into the lockdown, which here started on March the 13th, 2020, Disney approached us with a big design problem. They normally do elaborate red carpet events where they roll out their movies. So we've probably all seen them on TV, movie premiere, all the celebrities show up, the paparazzi show up, the press shows up, and it's a big deal to launch that particular movie. That's not going to happen during a lockdown. So they didn't want to just send out a Zoom link to a film and ask critics and the celebs and the VIPs to just watch a film. What could they actually do? So we built what became the world's first 3D virtual movie theater to be able to premiere films in. So this particular one is a themed theater experience. And again, the idea of this is to create an environment, create a space that's more interesting, more dynamic, more engaging than what I would call a conventional like 2D website experience. So this is where I can actually watch the show. We styled it. This was set in the late 1600s. So we styled the movie theater as though it was around in the 1600s. And then there's a whole Q&A
Hi, I'm
session.
Kate Hahn. I'm a senior writer for TV Guide magazine. Welcome to the Q&A for Nat Geo's epic new series, Barks.
So that goes on, and she introduces, and there's a big meetup there. And we could stream these in live, or we could do pre-records. So these were mostly pre-recorded.
Can you hear it? God in the whirlwind.
We went behind the scenes, we built character trees, built a map of the town that this was in. There wasn't enough time to build it in 3D and then click through. So that's just an example of one of the 3D environments. And then these idea then really started to take off. So we were working with Amazon, we were working with Apple, we were working with Disney, Hulu, and a number of other film studios building these experiences, this leverage redemption. I don't know if this ever aired.
Hi, I'm Lashetta Miller. I'm senior TV editor.
TV in New Zealand, but this is basically one of the sets from Leverage Redemption. And so we recreated it as a 3D space, and then you could go in and this is now moving forward where we are able to introduce avatars, so actual people and characters, and have interaction going on there. This particular space does not involve that. That's sort of the next phase of being able to actually have a persona and be able to chat in a space. Not all will like that. This is all in the fight for democracy. So this is Stacey Abrams, who fought to become the governor of the state of Georgia in the United States, and was basically ousted by a white man. Did not go over too well, and she fought back and took on the Senate race and won. So it flipped the state of Georgia, which basically won the election for the Democrats. And what we were interested in here is just going deeper again. So telling a story. This was an amazing interview that we set up. It was as good, if as interesting as the actual documentary itself.
Hello and welcome, viewing audience. I know you've just watched the Knockout Powerhouse documentary.
Again, a gallery that we added to that, biographies of the filmmakers. And by the way, these are all thrown together in about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So these are very quick turnaround projects, a lot of work, it's very intense. And in this particular example, what we also wanted to do is really offer layers of information. So how to register for voting, voting rights, anything to do and to really encourage and help people to get out there and vote. So sort of we're really pulling democracy to the forefront. And then how you can actually like get involved in voting and voter rights.
That's amazing.
And
Your
then
team would have been incredibly busy whilst most of us were just sitting watching Netflix during lockdown.
You were watching some of the things we were like helping put together out and get out there. So yeah, no, ran the full gamut of very serious documentary work to some really fun things. This one for Amazon, and then we would build Instagram experiences. So with this particular one, you could get a background and it would appear, and you could post that to social. And then we also did a record where during the screening, we asked people if we could record the last few minutes of the film because it's so utterly, insanely crazy and bloody and gory. And then we took the recordings and put those together, and that became a social event in itself. So
very cool.
A lot of fun. Good.
And
good
so
stuff.
do you think these kind of virtual plus, now that life's somewhat coming back to normal and people are going out again and events are starting to happen, do you think we're going to start seeing a blend of this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so I'm going to show some examples of things later where we've been running events that were fully online during the lockdown. And now that we're coming out of it here in New York City, we just did an event that we ran a year ago. We repeated it, and it was a hybrid event. And I think what's interesting there is no geography on the internet. You can be watching and tuning in from anywhere in the world, but to come to New York City to attend an event is a big deal for a lot of people. And so what the client actually realized in that particular case is like, wow, we've suddenly increased our audience to a global audience who can attend from anywhere. And when they did the hybrid event, obviously the people who are closer and the people who wanted to travel to New York could do that. But then we also had this online audience, the virtual audience. So yeah, I think that's really a trend. We're not going back to that. It's the same thing with the virtual workplace. We're seeing so many companies now that are saying, okay, we want people to return to the office, but the conditions have changed. They only have to appear a certain amount of time. It's not mandatory that everyone is in the office all the time. And there's just a tidal shift in the way that works. Last one here, and I think, again, this is exactly to your point, Mel, just thinking about like all the senses and how do we start to go deeper and do things that are more dynamic. So this is for Christian Dior. They have a perfume maker and made this beautiful documentary that goes all over the world with the perfume maker. And for the premiere,
someone walks into a room, mixes together some things that smell good, boom, you've got a perfume. It's quite the contrary. It's like composing a symphony.
So he goes all over the world and has these incredible sensory experience by smelling to create these perfumes. So we sent out a whole scratch and sniff kit with Premiere. So when he was in Egypt smelling saffron, you could scratch and sniff the saffron sample and you get a sense of that. So while adding scent to movie theaters is actually a very old thing, it was done with some of the very first films that ever came out. It's not something we're really accustomed to other than smelling popcorn, at the movie theater. We're really starting to and trying to think about, well, how can we add that to the sensory experience? And there are startups now that are doing this for VR. So they're adding to the headset a whole sniff or scent experience to go with it. Smell-o-vision, that's it. Exactly. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I've just seen a question pop up as well. So kind of talking about what we mentioned earlier. So, I mean, we all know New Zealand's renowned for its beautiful natural environment and scenery. And it's one of the reasons we attract so many filmmakers to get inspired. But given challenges of travel and distance and tyranny of distance, how do you think New Zealand should be leveraging this advantage of the virtual design world and adapting the way we do things?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the interesting things to me during the pandemic has been watching nature coming back in New Zealand. And I'm from Nelson originally, and just hearing about how beautiful the Abel Tasman experience now is, with so many fewer people there. And I know for tourism New Zealand, this has become a big issue. Is it better to have fewer high-paying tourists to New Zealand than masses of backpackers who just, literally, it's just the friction of so many people in the country. And I think, one of the potential opportunities here, and, maybe is one of these pivots, helping the environment shoot everything, create beautiful outdoor experiences, go on some of those hikes. Maybe it helps keep the volume of traffic down, but on a more serious note, I think giving people those experiences and taking them, it's becoming better and better. As you said before, it's nascent technology now, but I think headsets will become more prevalent. People will be looking for more 3D and virtual experiences. And wow, has New Zealand got some of the best places to visit? So I think it's it's a good question, and I think it's a really interesting one to explore. Like, how can New Zealand get out there into the virtual space?
Amazing. And I can see another follow-on question here as well. So, as we were talking, the convergence of real and virtual worlds is getting closer, the smell-o-vision, as we were talking about. So when do you see, or what do you see will be the tipping point to make this more mainstream?
If we want to call this thing the metaverse, which now, Facebook just renamed to Meta, and Mark Zuckerberg is pouring billions into the space with the purchase of Oculus headsets. And it's been around for a while, and we've had Second Life, I think was invented in like 2003. And, there have been various different attempts at creating these three-dimensional worlds and spaces. I think it's still got somewhat of a way to go. I don't see, all my friends don't have headsets. They don't rush home from work or look for entertainment experiences day in, day out on wearing a headset. So and the question, when is there going to be a tipping point? Apple is about to enter that space. There are a lot of rumors about the Apple headset. There's a lot of discussion about an augmented world before a full-on virtual world, for a lot of discovery or work that's actually going on at the moment. And I think that that's going to push us towards that tipping point, whatever that is. I think you also have to think about what are the different applications for this, right? So it's not only entertainment, it's in the workplace too. So we've been working on projects where we work with organizations that need to do training, right? So for people in a critical engineering environment where you have to learn how a complex piece of machinery works, and you can put on an AR headset. So you're seeing an augmented layer on top of the real world, and it shows you how to use a piece of machinery, for example, or safety procedures and this kind of thing. And I think that we're going to see in certain industries more and more. So there'll be that sort of silent B2B application that most people are less aware of versus the entertainment space. But a date, I have no idea. Who knows? It's just. Honestly, it feels a lot like internet 1994 and 1993. Some people are saying, oh, it's never going to take off. What is this internet thing? It's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Other people saying it's the future. And, and then we had the .com, bubble and burst, and the whole thing collapsed, and then it's come back, and now it's obviously
Y2K,
where it is.
where everyone thought the world was going to end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it is. I mean, it's how long is a piece of string? You just don't know. But I mean, it's happening. That's all we can say. It's happening now, and it's happening quickly.
right.
So kind of going back into the design stuff. So you've shared with us that your motto has always been to push the boundaries and limits of design. Can you kind of talk about what you think great design looks like and why it's so important, particularly for small businesses? And to kind of follow on from that, does expensive design equal good design? Or, do you need to spend a lot of money in order to have great design?
Right. Sorry, I just saw someone was saying to take me off screen share. So sorry, didn't need to disappear into a thumbnail in the corner. Sorry for that. Actually, do you mind just repeating the question then? No.
Yeah, of course. So it's just talking about your passion for design and, what great design looks like and why it's so important, particularly for small businesses, given, New Zealand is a country of 90% small businesses, but also to follow on from, what great design looks like. Does good design necessarily mean expensive design? You have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the word design is just, it means so many things to so many different, it's so broad now. I mean, if hairdressers are calling themselves hair designers, and I mean, just, where do you draw this thing? But I think if you think about anyone that's creating a product or has a service, and that service is in the public sphere, or you have some kind of an audience, right? You have someone that you're trying to sell something to, or you're engaging with someone. It's going to run everything from your brand identity. And your brand identity is not just your logo. It is the way that you pick up and answer the phone. It is the way people dress. It is the way people speak to their customer. It is every touch point of communication. And if we want to encompass that, the whole sort of like brand experiences like design, it's important for every business. Do you necessarily need to go out and spend lots of money on it? No. We're working with startup companies now that have a founder and CEO that has a great idea. They're working on a tech product. They take that tech product quite a long way before they start getting design, UX and UI involved. We encourage them to do it as early as possible, but you need a product. You need something to like get that thing going. You don't want to leave it too late to get design involved. But you also don't want to spend tons of money up front and end up without an actual working product because you've blown your budget on the creative and design piece of it. So I think it's a hard question to answer without knowing about a specific like business or a specific
there actually is a specific question. Someone has asked, David has asked, how could it be used for tourism, destination, and marketing? It's very big. There's a lot that.
Yeah. I mean, again, are you talking about the the kayaking experience in the Abel Tasman, or are you talking in New Zealand? And I think runs that full gamut. And there's something beautiful. Design doesn't necessarily mean it all has to be bright colors and polished and shiny objects. I mean, New Zealand is a country of nature, and it's a country of outdoors. And there's beauty in the texture of New Zealand too. So, a tourism business that can actually pick up on the flavor of those colors and the textures of New Zealand, it's become something that's like very unique to that. I love the Garage project, the beer place in Wellington, for example, right? They took over the old garage there, and they're putting out beer and having different cans and different designs and inviting different designers to get involved with that. That's an entire brand itself. And it's amazing how they've embraced design. The design of the can is as much an image and as much of the experience as the actual taste of the product itself. And they're almost inseparable, but really, I mean, like, wow, well done, great job, you know. Not sure if that's exactly answering that project. I look at
more around destination marketing. Sorry,
yeah.
I added a word in there. So it was all around tourism destination marketing and how these kind of experiences could be used. I'm guessing that's around VR and immersive online interactions. I guess again, you know, New Zealand's opened its borders to Australia recently. You know, we're ready for the world to start coming back to New Zealand with tourism, you know, being a very key export business for New Zealand. So what could we be doing to virtually get people over here before they actually get on the plane?
I think the VR experience it is an interesting one. I think you have to be very careful about knowing what is the size of your target audience and your market. There are, you know, it's all the hype right now, but how many of your friends have Oculus headsets or headsets and use them, right? Right, exactly. Yeah, you know, it's like it's not there in big numbers yet. So, you know, don't go rushing out spending, you know, enormous sums of money on creating VR experiences unless you know that you've got a really good captive audience somewhere who's going to, that you're going to be able to monetize this against, you know, and that's going to be key to the next step and the next phase of the internet that this is going to take. I look at, you know, let's take someone like Dieter Rams, for example, the famous German industrial designer. And he's done 10 points of principles of good design. And the first one is that it's innovative, right? So do something that's innovative. Make the product useful, right? So it's got to have a use in whatever context that is. Useful in an entertainment context, useful in a utilitarian context as well. It's aesthetic, it's designed, it's considered, it's something that you have actually really thought about the design of that particular thing, whatever it is. Make it understandable, that you can see that and you understand what you're looking at. The message is actually coming through, that you're communicating that thing, whether it's the beer can from the garage project or whether it's my Abel Tasman, you know, kayaking experience, right? It's unobtrusive. It's not necessarily too much in my face. I don't agree with all of his points here. It's honesty in design. You know, we're not trying to deceive people. We want to be actually very clear about what upfront, what it is. It's long lasting, particularly in product design, particularly in this age of throwaway products and plastics and everything. I think that's extremely important to be considering into design or reuse for an object. We're working on an EV last mile delivery system right now. So electric vehicles, think like scooter type vehicles, motorcycles, etc. And thinking about systems where everything is interchangeable. Everything can be upgraded, everything can be replaced. You can unscrew everything, you can see everything. There's nothing's like welded, soldered, like hidden. It's all very much out in the open so that people can really kind of pimp their ride. But this is going to give these an incredibly long life and allow us to be able to upgrade and expand without this kind of throwaway, you know, concept. It's thorough down to the last detail. So really consider everything. You know, if you're having that tourism experience, like write out that entire tourist journey from the moment they've heard about New Zealand or someone's referred them to coming to New Zealand all the way through to them posting their photos when they get back home and telling their friends to come and visit New Zealand. Like, what is that entire journey and where does your brand, what do you actually like fit into that user customer experience? We do that with product design and product development, like digital software products. It's very, very important to put the end user at the center of that design process. That it's environmentally friendly, and it's as little design as possible, which almost sounds a little bit contradictory, but keep it simple. Stupid. Doesn't work in a lot of
works for everything.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I can see another question, so I'll just keep going from the attendees. Your comment about treating design in a B2B environment as seriously as B2C really resonated. Do you have any advice on how to show the value of this approach to traditional industries like manufacturing, equipment businesses that often underinvest in even basic marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually going to just, to answer the question, I'm just going to throw up an example of something that we did, because I think it actually speaks to what we went on there. So we're putting microchips into helicopters and measuring micro vibrations. And by doing that, we're able to see which parts are wearing out on a helicopter. So it's this is telematics, and it's taking this data. So what we can do is we can see if a ball bearing in a ball race is wearing unevenly. We can see if a pilot is overstressing an aircraft, for example. And we were given the task to brand the company. We didn't come up with the name, unfortunately, but to design the UX and the UI for this. They took this product to Heli Expo in Dallas, and at lunchtime, the guy in the booth next door came over and he said, "What are you guys selling? This is crazy. I've seen the head of engineering for Sikorsky, for Boeing, for Rolls-Royce. They're spending hours in your booth. What have you guys got? This is like crazy." Well, no one had ever designed an interface like this before. No one had ever really thought about like, what would these screens actually look like? It's extremely important data. I mean, you could crash a helicopter if you don't know that, you know, a particular part needs replacing, right? You can also make your helicopter fly longer because you see that all, you know, everything's operating, you know, within all the right parameters. But I think it's a really good example of where the client took the risk and said, we're going to design the hell out of this thing. We're going to make it look like nobody's ever done before. And it got them so much attention, and it really affected sales. So just, you know, obviously every business, every industry, every company is different, but just an example of someone who, you know, normally would have just taken the lowest common denominator approach when it came to designing screens, to then saying, let's flip this on its head, let's go in the other direction. And it just got so much attention from the industry. So, yeah.
And do you think this is something that Kiwi companies need to pay more attention to?
I don't know about more attention, but you know, it should be, yeah, it should be important. I mean, there's a big trend here of taking designers into the boardroom, like give designers like positions high up in the organization, have them listening to business plans, have them listening to concepts, you know, the future of the business, where is it heading, get them involved at those stages. And full gamut again. I mean, gosh, look at the America's Cup and what New Zealand's doing with design and innovation. I mean, it's just off the charts, amazing what's coming there. In farming, you know, we see some incredibly advanced robotics, you know, everything from halter that's, you know, like herding cows, you know, just through vibrations in the halters, to, you know, kiwi fruit picking machines and like, and everything in between. Like, it's amazing. So there are companies that really are taking design very, very seriously and see it as the core of their business. The design of, you know, the America's Cup boats is what wins races. If you don't like, if that's not paramount to what your operation. Right? Yeah.
To the point Oracle had to completely change their boat. So I've got another question here in regards to obviously the metaverse, something I know we've talked about before. It's hard to ignore the rise of virtual worlds in the metaverse, and I'm really keen to learn more about it. You know, there's just so much out there, and I think there's a lot of hype about it, but there's a lot of people who don't really know what the benefits of it could be. So did you want to talk about, you know, the opportunities here for businesses and brands, particularly looking at how we can now connect with customers in ways we've never done before?
Sure, and we can go in there, and I think, you know, caveat here that the comment to whoever said that, you know, in a way spot on. There's an amazing amount of hype out there, and we don't know where this is going to go, but the amount of money that's being poured in by very big organizations, I think it does need to be taken seriously. I certainly wouldn't ignore it. And I think it's worth the conversation in a lot of organizations and a lot of businesses as to what role it could potentially play, and at least have the conversation now. So at least you've started to think about this. Whether you actually act upon that and do anything about it is another matter, right? But the spaces look really crude. I mean, there are games and there's gaming out there that's way more dynamic, and way more sophisticated than a lot of this. And a lot of this is like, there I am just hanging out with all these other people who are hanging out. Space. So I think close that because it's going to be distractingly loud. I think you have to really start thinking about, well, what's the purpose? Like, what's your business? Why might you want to be in there? Is it e-commerce? Are you selling a product? Is the opportunity there? So right now there are no winners. There are multiple different spaces and places. Some of them are very much oriented around games. Some of them are oriented around NFTs, selling NFTs, making money from that. Some of them are real world type mapped environments, such as Upland, for example. You can buy actual real estate, so like an actual physical place that exists in the world is mapped in Upland, whereas Decentraland are much more abstract spaces. And it doesn't feel like anyone's really sort of broken through yet to create experiences that point to, oh, this is where it's going to go, or that, oh wow, this is the platform that's going to win against all the others. Or is it always going to be like multiple spaces, and I'm going to be moving from one to another depending on what I want to do and what sort of experience I want to have? So yeah, entertainment, games and gaming, selling product, selling NFTs, it's got blockchain as the underlying technology. And like I said before, it does feel a lot like Internet 1994. I don't think there are any sort of clear winners or exact clear path as to what the direction is going to go in. But we've got Apple, as I said before, coming out potentially with a headset sooner than later, and all the other big players are putting money into their platforms and their headsets, and we don't even know if they're going to talk to each other or if they're going to be able to cross platforms. So yeah,
probably not, knowing Apple and all the other players,
right? Yeah, so I haven't, and I'll be honest, I haven't really answered the question. I think that's part of the answer. It's just watch this space, keep an eye on it, think about what's the opportunity. Are you in the digital space? Are you doing things in the 2D and other environments that you could take to the metaverse? I wouldn't necessarily be sinking tons of resources into it now, but I might be interested to just go in there and play. And right, and just see, get your feet wet.
What's actually happening globally, because it's going to happen quickly. When it does happen, it's going to happen quickly.
Right, and you'll have the same access to the same info that we have, Wired, CNET, all the different resources. So New Zealand, you can be as aware as anyone else.
Or even lead the way in some of these things as well.
Why not?
The reason why
it wouldn't be the first
time. So I know, conscious of time, we've got about 9 minutes left. I thought I'd move over to a more personal project around Flat White. So we know you're one of the co-founders of Flat White, along with a few other of our world-class New Zealanders like the Neville Mannings. Did you want to talk about how it all was started and how it's grown over the years, and the value this brings to the Kiwi community, not only in New York, but around the world, those that are traveling to New York and visiting all the states?
Yeah, sure. So there are a couple of different things that happened here. So one is there's a very tight expat community in New York City. Pre-pandemic, I believe there were about 2,000 or so approximately Kiwis living in New York. And Jeff Andrews, who sadly passed away at the end of last year, really helped pull the community together, and we would run particular events when prime ministers came. Sir Graham Henry came. Oh my goodness, we've had so many, you know, Rod Dixon, some fantastic speakers who've come in, and Chatham House rules, nothing leaves the room. They can say whatever they want and just have these like really interesting interviews and discussions. So that's sort of at the highest level. And then in about 2011, Tina Dustar, who was at NZT at the time, I had started having conversations with her, and she was thinking about, well, should we do some more nuanced meetups and get-togethers? And that was how Flat White Meetup was born. And the idea is New Zealanders who are in the entrepreneur space, technology and creative space. We meet about once a month, although we didn't during the pandemic, and come together and have one person present and talk about the project that they're working on, or what the connection is to New Zealand and the business that they're actually doing, and how the community can help. So it's a lot about interchange, right? And it can be as simple as like, how do I get a good immigration attorney, or how do I find a place to stay? We've had Andy Hamilton come from the Ice House, Robbie Paul. Andy Williams spoke 2 weeks ago. He's from Stompy. It's a new B2C wine business that he's starting up right now. Super cool, really interesting. Rob Fife came and spoke a couple of months ago. Jake Miller, who sadly passed away last year, he's spoken a number of times. Mark Z. It's a long list of people, but the idea is to really keep the Kiwi diaspora and the connection to New Zealand going. And if the community here in New York can actually help people, let's do it, you know, and vice versa. It's about lifting each other up and playing it forward. And yeah, so I mean, that's Flat White as it is today. If you are planning on coming to New York, get in touch, let me know. Guy Horrocks, Ryan Malcock, and Alex Gould are the others who are involved with Flat White. So, you know, between us, we kind of shuffle it.
Fantastic.
And
Guy's brought it over to Auckland as well. There's been a few Flat White meetups in the Lodge Bar at Bay as well, which has worked really well.
Yes, and to that end, there's now Air New Zealand is starting a direct flight to New Zealand from New York. So
September.
Yeah, I hopefully it'll make New York more of a destination for Kiwis. I know, you know, it's often London, you know, Europe, or San Francisco, LA. But so yeah, I mean, that's we're trying to, you know, keep it fairly tight, the Flat White meetup group, and focused in on those subjects. But I think it does really help. You know, we know that we help people connect, and
that's fantastic. And I think it's also just to shed a light on who's around as well. I mean, New York is a huge city, and so if there's a friendly Kiwi face that you could have a coffee with, and just like you said, ask anything from, you know, what's happening in the sector through to I need a new sublease. You know, where can I go, or who do you know that is looking for a flatmate, or is moving out of their house. So it's just those little conversations. And as we call it here, I know our chairman Phil always says it's all around engineering serendipity. So it's just, you'd never know who you're going to talk to and how those conversations are going to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, well,
we'll make sure we share the details of the Flat White website as well, so that people who may be traveling to New York or moving to New York can get in touch with you guys and get involved. But I think that, yeah, that essentially wraps up the time that we have. So Ronnie, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely fascinating to see the projects that you've worked on, the kind of design elements that you've built in, and the future of design and the metaverse and virtual reality. We appreciate all the time you've taken today to take us through all of that. To everyone who has attended today, thank you so much for your questions and being involved. We have recorded the session as well, so the recording will be made available on Kia's website later today. So you feel free to share that with anyone who might find this conversation interesting or useful. So yeah, thank you, Ronnie, again for joining us, and to everyone, we hope we see you for the next event. Have an amazing day and haere-ra.
Thank you so much for having me, and hi to everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope this was useful and interesting. So thanks a lot. Be in touch.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Bye.
Bye.